Do you have a prepper pantry full of random ingredients like these, but no idea how to turn them into an actual dinner when it comes right down to it? Stop just storing food and start emergency meal prep. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared, and today I'm showing you how to turn random prepper pantry ingredients into this, an emergency meal kit, otherwise known as a meal in a bag. This is a completely shelf-stable kit that contains everything you need, right down to any water that you need to prepare the meal. Whether it's a power outage, an illness, or you just want a way to bless others and give back, this bag provides a home-cooked meal with zero stress. Today's recipe is kind of like a Western cowboy twist on a shepherd's pie that I'm calling ranch hand pie, and it is delicious. Let's get started and I'll show you what goes in the bag and how to make it. So these are the ingredients that we need for this meal. I've got a couple of canned items here. I have a can of Keystone ground beef. This is the large can, the 28-ounce can. And I've got a can of corn here. So this is Southwest corn that's got some peppers and stuff in it. You could just use plain corn if that's what you have. There's also a Great Value brand of this, I believe, but I'm using this because it's what I have that's oldest. And I'll link everything down below to make it easier for you to find and different options. Next, I've got some instant mashed potatoes. I've got 2 bags here. 2 the same. These are the kind that have all of the seasonings, butter, everything already included. You don't have to add any milk, salt, butter, anything like that. It's all in here. Just add water. And there's lots of different flavors of these instant potato packets. You can use whatever flavor you like. I've just got the plain buttery one, but I have 2 packets here. Next, I've got a little bag of bacon bits. So this is 2.5 ounces. So it's very small. So it's a perfect size for a one recipe. And these are shelf stable. And they will last a year or more past the date on the bag, as long as the bag isn't punctured at all. If the bag gets punctured at all, I have seen some that were nowhere close to their dates that had grown mold, because you just need to make sure that they stay sealed up and they'll last quite a while. Next, I've got this bag of crispy onions. So it's basically French fried onions. This bag is from Dollar Tree. It's a 2.8 ounce bag, which is the perfect size to top one casserole dish. So I like to get these. I do think that Walmart has a bag this size. If you can't find this, I'll try to link to that down below. However, of course, it wouldn't be $1.25. Of course, a lot of stuff isn't $1.25 at Dollar Tree anymore, but the last time I bought these, they were. And then I've got my seasoning ingredients down here. So I have got 2 of these cups of barbecue sauce. So this is Sweet Baby Ray's, and I believe these are 2-ounce cups of barbecue sauce. So 2 is about the exact amount we need, which is a 1/4 cup total. There's lots of different ways you can get small barbecue sauce like that. If you can't find those, they have these cups, which are smaller. They're 1.25 ounces. You just use a few more of them. You might find a cup like this near your deli area of your Walmart or your grocery store. This is a buffalo sauce. It's not barbecue, but I believe they do have barbecue. I've used these before. You can find small bottles like this. I picked these 2 up at Dollar Tree, but I believe they also have them at Walmart and other places. So this is a little 2-ounce bottle. It's about the same amount as is in one of these cups. And this is a 4-ounce bottle, so there's a lot more in here. If you've got a bottle of this, you probably only need 1. The thing to make sure of is to make sure that it's a barbecue sauce that you like the flavor of and that you're going to have the right amount for the recipe. Then I also have some packets here. So this is a packet of spicy brown mustard. And this is a packet of A1 steak sauce. Sometimes you can get packets like these at restaurants, takeout food. If you eat out a lot or you know people who do, they might save packets for you. I have also ordered these on Amazon because these are slightly different ones that I don't always find a way to get my hands on, but you can get a really big pack usually for, not a ton of money, and then I use them in a lot of recipes. In fact, sometimes what I've decided is instead of having a big bottle of something in my fridge, since I'm going to be buying these packets anyways, and it's probably more than I need for my meals in a bag because it's usually a really big packet, I will just use a packet anytime I need one instead of having all those open bottles in my fridge, because sometimes I feel like my fridge was so full and all it is different condiment bottles. Next, I've got this. It's 2 packets of this Sazon. These packets come in a box like this. I believe I picked this up at Dollar Tree. I know I've found them at Dollar Tree before, but they're also available on Amazon. I'll try to link to them in case you can't find them at your Dollar Tree. I'm sure grocery stores carry these as well. So 2 packets is what I've got here for this recipe. This has salt in it and other seasonings. So I just thought this would be easier. Sometimes I'll put my seasonings into a little baggie or a small baby food jar, but I just thought it would be easier to just use a couple of these packets. You could always throw salt and pepper packets in in place of this if you can't find these and you happen to have salt and pepper packets, and you could use that to taste. But this has everything we need in it. And then, of course, the final ingredient I have are these 2 bottles of water here. And these are to prepare the potatoes with. I like to make sure that every single thing we need for this meal is going to be in the bag, including the water. In fact, if you wanted, you could include a 9x13 foil pan so that you would have the pan you needed right with your ingredients. And if it was an emergency and you didn't have, hot running water, you wouldn't have the extra cleanup of having to clean that casserole dish. Also, if you're using certain emergency ovens, sometimes your pan doesn't fit quite right, and it's nice to have a foil pan and be able to squish the sides and manipulate the pan a little bit to get it to fit. All right, let's get these ingredients in the bag. All right, I'm gonna add my can of ground beef, my can of corn, my 2 bottles of water, my 2 pouches of mashed potato, my bag of crispy onions, my bag of bacon bits, my 2 cups of barbecue sauce, and the rest of my packets of seasonings. And now this bag is ready to go on the shelf. But of course, I'm not gonna put it on the shelf today. I'm gonna fix this up and show you how quick and easy it turns into a delicious, hearty meal. All right, to fix this meal today, I'm gonna be using my butane stove to start, and then of course it's gonna get baked. I do have a 9x13 dish here. You can spray your dish if you want, and if you have spray, but it's not necessary. In an emergency, you might not have spray and it would be just fine. Now, of course, this does call for baking at the end. I have a propane camp oven that fits a 9x13 pan, and that's how I usually do this if I have to do this without my electric oven. There's lots of different ways that you can bake without power, and I will talk about some of those a little bit later in the video. But there's also different ways that you can use this dish and kind of eat this dish in just a little bit different form if you don't have any way to bake it at all. So we'll talk about that as well. But we're going to start by getting the filling and the topping both ready on this burner. I'm going to start by opening up my can of Hamburg. And I am going to use this new can opener that I got recently. This is amazing with this crank handle. If you, for me, the bigger the can is, the harder it is to open. I don't usually have too much trouble with these 28-ounce cans, but number 10 cans I have a lot of trouble with. So this can opener has been amazing. On a shorter can like this, actually, I think I do have room to open this probably, but sometimes with a shorter can, you have to hang it off the edge of the countertop a little bit because of this long crank handle, but it makes it so much easier to open the cans. And of course, it is power outage and emergency friendly as well. Now, I love these Keystone meats. These are really good quality. You can see the only ingredients in here are beef and sea salt. You're gonna see some liquid or some fat in the can, probably. That's a natural byproduct that comes out of the meat as it's processed, just like if you were canning Hamburg in your own kitchen. All right, so there you go. You can see that there's some fat on the top. There might be some liquid underneath. I am going to skim off part of this fat as much as I can get off. It's okay to leave some or all of it in for flavor and for extra calories, especially in an emergency. And you could actually scrape that off and use it to saute with. Like if you had a saute step in your recipe, or if you just needed something to saute with any other time, you can use this fat. But I have got my little stock pot here. I'm just going to go ahead and get some of the fat off the top and get the meat into the pan. This really comes off the meat pretty easily. And I am going to leave the liquid behind because, as much as I can, because we don't really need that extra liquid in our recipe. You could always use it in a different recipe or even use it as part of the liquid for the mashed potatoes if you really didn't want to waste anything, which a lot of the time in an emergency, it's really important not to waste anything. But it could be used in any other dish or fed to your animals or many different things like that. I'm not going to be really fussy and worry too much about every last little bit of fat because some of that is going to be good for giving us some extra flavor. All right, so I have got my beef in the pan. I'm just going to start heating this really slowly in the pan because while I'm doing that, I'm going to be opening up my corn. Now, we're not going to use the liquid from the corn in here, but we can save this liquid and use it in our mashed potatoes. It's just going to give it a little bit of extra flavor, and it's going to reduce waste. We're not going to be wasting any liquid because we are practicing for an emergency when you would not want to waste liquid, and you might want the extra water in those bottles to actually drink. So I am going to pour the liquid off into a measuring cup just so I can save it and have the measurements. I'm going to start breaking up this beef a little bit and stirring it around. As it starts to heat, I'm going to go ahead and add in my corn. A side note on these cans and the ingredients, number one, consider a can opener. So make sure that you always have a, non-electric can opener on hand. Sometimes I like to throw a military style can opener into these cans because they're really tiny and flat, and you can get a whole set of them for just a few dollars, usually on Amazon. Then if you're taking this meal somewhere, or if you're using it, giving it to somebody, if you're using it in an emergency, you will have a can opener. The other thing is, when you're gathering your ingredients, make sure that you are putting very fresh ingredients into the bags so that they have the longest possible shelf life on your shelf, because the shelf life of your bags and how many years they can sit on your shelf is going to depend on the shortest shelf life ingredient in the bag. Of course, keeping in mind that most things will last a lot longer after their best by dates, but you just need to kind of take that into consideration. As this is heating, I'm going to add my extra seasoning ingredients. So I'm going to add my packets. Now, this is something that you could always taste and, season to taste. Maybe you only want one packet in your base here. Turn this up now that I'm paying attention and stirring. Now, if you wanted, you could add a small mason jar with some freeze-dried chopped onions and bell peppers. That would be a really nice addition to this meal. I'm just going to stick with the peppers that are inside of my canned corn because I just wanted to keep it really simple. But sometimes I will do that and throw in a, half pint mason jar or whatever with some freeze-dried chopped onions and bell peppers. Okay, now I'm going to add my 2 things of barbecue sauce. Whoopsie. Y'all didn't see that. This should be a total of about a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce, or a little bit more. You can, of course, add it to taste. If you want more, add more. But the original recipe is for a 1/4 cup. All right, let's give this a stir. This has gotten plenty hot, so I can go ahead and turn this off now. I'm just adding in my final 2 seasonings, so my steak sauce packet and my mustard packet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stir these final ingredients in. Now, of course, at this point, you can taste and adjust your seasonings, but because this is a meal in a bag, we basically want to have everything in the bag. But I do recommend making meals like this at least once before you make up a bunch of bags and store them or give them away, because everyone has different tastes, and you don't know if you're going to like this meal just because I like this meal and my family likes it. You may not care for it, or you might want to make some changes to make it suit your taste. So always try things once, adjust the seasonings, write down what you did, and then you can adjust what you have in your packet. Okay, I am going to go ahead and put this into my 9x13 pan that I've got ready here. Just spread it out across the bottom. I am going to scrape this pan really well because we're going to be using this for the potato topping, and I am not going to bother to clean it in between, just because I like to have everything be emergency friendly. If there's a tiny bit of, flavor or seasoning from our meat mixture in the potatoes, it's not going to be a big deal, and we will hardly even notice it. So I'm just going to spread this out in this pan. How do I get barbecue sauce all over the place? Whoopsie. Now I'm going to set this aside and get started on the potato topping, which is going to be super simple. I'm just going to add 4 cups of water to this pot, which is 2 cups per pouch of potatoes. And remember, I am using this corn liquid that we drained out. So I've got my 4 cups total. I'm going to go ahead and put this into my pan. And I'm just going to bring this to a boil really quickly. If you use a lid on your pan, it helps conserve the heat, trap the heat in, makes it boil faster, save some of your fuel. This is the wrong lid. I can't find the right lid, but anywho, we're going to go with this. All right, now that this is just about to come up to a boil, I've got my potatoes open. I'm just going to let this boil, and then I can turn it off and dump the potatoes in and just give them a quick mix. All right, I'm going to turn that off and just mix these together really quickly to get them all moistened. Starting to thicken already, but once I'm sure I've got them all mixed, no more dry spots, I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on and just let this set for 5 minutes. All right, I'm going to let this set for 5 minutes. All right, so it's been 5 minutes. I've got my mashed potatoes all thickened. I'm going to go ahead and open up my bacon, and I'm going to put about about half of this bag of bacon pieces into the potatoes, and the other half is going to go on the top. And this can be, you know, divided up however you want, whatever sounds good to you. All right, so now I've got my bacon in my potatoes here. I'm going to go ahead and just dollop these potatoes over the top of my casserole. I'm going to try to dollop it pretty evenly because I do have to spread it and I don't want to disturb the bottom layer too much. I'm just going to spread this out as best I can without messing up my bottom layer too much. All right, so here we are. We've got the mashed potatoes all spread out nicely. Now it's time to sprinkle on my crispy onions. You can crunch these up a little bit if you want so that they're smaller pieces. Right inside the bag works. And finally, just the rest of the bacon pieces are going to go over the top of the casserole. And now here it is, ready to go in the oven. Now, I told you I had my oven set to 350. I lied. It's actually 375 for this casserole. So I'm going to stick it in my 375-degree oven for about 25 minutes or until it's nice and hot, bubbly, and browned on the top. All right, after just 20 minutes, we are browned, crispy, bubbly, and smelling amazing. So I'm just going to let this cool off for a few minutes. And then we're going to dig in. All right, this smells amazing. And now I'm ready to dig in and give it a try. Oh, that is so good. Delicious, hearty, and filling. This is amazing. I took my inspiration for this dish from an online recipe that was called Cowboy Mashed Potato Casserole. There's a lot of different recipes out there called Cowboy Casserole, and our family already has a different family favorite dish by that name. So that's why I renamed it Ranch Hand Pie, but you can call it whatever you want. If you have a great name for this dish, make sure you drop it down below in the comments. This is a great recipe because it's basically a meal in one dish. It contains our protein, our starch, and our veggie, if you want to consider corn a veggie. But if you want a bit more nutrition in the meal, you can include another canned veggie or even a canned fruit right in the bag to serve alongside with this meal. I do have a printable recipe card that you can download and print if you want. Just go to mealinabag.com and you'll find that printable, as well as different tips on how I actually use the recipe cards in my bags. Now, the bags. People are always asking me about the bags I use. I use these bags that I get on Amazon. I usually buy them in like a 50 or 100 pack. There's two sizes. This is the bigger size, and that will hold just about any meal. What I like about them is they are this strong, sort of plasticky material, so they don't rip. They're definitely reusable. In fact, you can even wipe them clean if you need to, if you get something on them in the kitchen while you're cooking. They have a flat gusseted bottom, so they stand up on your shelf. And then they also have this little paperboard insert in the bottom that makes them rigid and makes them hold things a lot more easily. Now, I get a lot of questions about where I get the bags with the pockets on them. So what I do is I put the pockets on myself. And there's two things that I use depending on what I have on hand and what I feel like using. They're both self-adhesive, so they're like stickers, peel and stick. There are some DVD holders that are square that you would slip a DVD in. They work great for the recipes. And the other one is these 4x6 index card pockets. So there's two on this page. They're 4x6. Now, the printed recipe pages that we have, they start off as a single page. It prints out as a single page, so you could put this into a sheet protector and put it in a binder if you wanted, or you can fold it up and put it in or on your bag. And I do recommend probably keeping one copy in a binder just in case, especially if you tend to give away your bags to other people, just so you always have your own copy to start with. But you can fold it in half one time like this, and then just slip it right inside the bag if you don't want to use any kind of a pocket on the outside. Or if you use a pocket, you fold it one more time. So now we've got the name of the dish in the picture right here. And a few different ways that you can use this is I like to put a pocket on the front of the bag on the broad side and just tuck the recipe down into the pocket. And that serves to label your bag, and it also serves as a recipe that when somebody goes to make the dish, they just pull this out. I also like to label the narrow side because I often stand these up on a shelf, like books, and I want to be able to read at least what's in each bag quickly at a glance. So I'll use these chalkboard stickers, chalkboard label stickers a lot of the time. The other thing I have done is used a pocket on the narrow side. These will fit onto the narrow side, and just slide the folded recipe card in, and that can make it stand for a label and a recipe on that narrow side all in one. So that's just a few different ways that I like to do these, but you could do anything you want, use any kind of bags and label them any way you want. If you go to mealinabag.com and go to how-tos and supplies, then you'll find a little bit more information on what I use and how I do this. Because many people use meals in a bag as part of their emergency preparedness plan, let's talk about the fact that this recipe does call for being baked in the oven. If the power's out and you have an electric oven, there are lots of different ways that you can bake without power. I did mention a propane-powered camp oven earlier, which I think is great to have because for me, it's the easiest way to kind of regulate the temperature and achieve the high temperatures pretty easily. And we chose ours, which is a Camp Chef, based on the fact that it could hold a 9x13 pan. But it seems like the Camp Chef has discontinued their camp oven though. There's definitely similar ovens and I'll link them down below, but I haven't actually tried them, so I'm not sure they hold a 9x13 pan. If you have one you use that's a different brand and you know it holds a 9x13 pan, let us know what brand it is down below. If you have a grill, you can also bake in your grill over indirect heat. Just make sure that you're doing this outdoors and not indoors. Depending on where you live and what time of year it is, a sun oven is another option, a solar oven. We have something called an ember oven that can be used indoors with canned heat, or it can be used outdoors with wood fuel. Some of these other ovens may not hold a 9x13 pan, but sometimes you can use a foil pan because it can be easily manipulated and bent. You can get them to fit. It's also an option to portion the recipe out into multiple smaller pans. The smaller the pan, the faster it's going to actually cook. So you could even portion it out into like muffin pans for individual servings, and that's going to bake really, really quickly. A favorite off-grid way of ours of baking that we use all the time when we go camping is to do it in a cast iron Dutch oven with coals. You can either use charcoal briquettes or wood coals from a wood fire. It is important to remember that if any emergency situation goes on for a very long time, any fuel we might store is probably going to run out, and wood might become our only option. If you absolutely do not have a way to bake this meal, you can still enjoy it. You could make the filling and the topping separately, just layer them right on your plate. It doesn't even matter which one goes on top. Maybe give those crispy onions a toasting in a pan. But let's also remember that one, not all emergencies involve power outages. Think about things like lockdowns or personal emergencies like illness or income loss, things like that. I know somebody who got cancer. She had treatments, she had surgery. She said meals in a bag and meals in a jar were the only way that she was able to keep herself fed when she couldn't physically do much and she couldn't get out of her house. I know a lot of people who have been really, really thankful to have meals like these to fall back on when they've experienced financial hardships, whether it's just for a week or two, like an unexpected expense that pops up and breaks your budget, or much longer, like a job loss, for instance. And of course, there are many, many ways that people use these meals in a bag besides emergencies. They're great to grab off the shelf when you need a quick, easy dinner. Maybe you forgot to plug in the crock pot that day. Maybe you're running late getting home. You need to ask your teen or your spouse to fix supper. People use these on camping trips to save cooler space. They use them on vacations to keep their budget under control. All sorts of ways that these can be used. And of course, using them to donate or bless others. They're absolutely wonderful for this purpose. It became almost a fad back around the holidays, like right around Thanksgiving. A ton of people were doing this like a fad. But remember that hunger is not just at the holidays. There's people in our country who are dealing with hunger every single day. And these can be a great way to help. Giving not just random food items, but a complete meal with a plan and a recipe. If you have blessing boxes in your town or like a church pantry, one thing to note, if you want to donate these meals like these to a larger food pantry, be sure to check with them ahead of time, because some pantries are just going to disassemble these kits and just hand out the food items separately anyways. So just be sure that you don't waste your time and energy. Check with them first and make sure that it's something that they can use. But anytime that you know someone that could use a meal, these are your friend. Somebody who's had a baby or a surgery or a death in the family. A lot of people bring food all at once when something like this happens. And it's overwhelming at first, and then it's all gone. So of course, we have things like meal train websites now to organize things like this. But if there's not one like that set up, then giving a meal like this lets people, prepare the meal when they actually need it. If you have a family member who struggles and you just want to make sure that they always have a meal, these can be great to stick a few in their cupboard and just know that they always have a home cooked meal available. I have a whole collection of meal in a bag recipes going back several years, including budget meals from Dollar Tree. I've got small single serving meals, all sorts of different types of dishes, main dish salads, soups, all sorts of them. I'm going to link that playlist down below where you can find all those recipes. Try them out and find your favorites, and then fix up a bunch to stock your shelves, and you will never be stuck without a plan. Just grab a bag off the shelf and get to cooking. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a cactus emoji down in the comments. And if you want some more meal in a bag recipes like this one, I've got some cozy soups that I'm going to leave right here for you to watch next. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.